So as I was looking at what the hell was I looking at? I was looking at something. I was looking at lists of podcasts. So I opened up my phone and then I started to I typed in Jean-Michel Basquiat, and I noticed that there were a couple, at least one. There was one podcast that spoke directly to one work of art by Jean-Michel Basquiat, one work. And I have been inspired to follow the example of that podcast to discuss one work by Jean-Michel Basquiat. And that's what I'm going to do here with this episode. I'm going to just talk about one work of art by Jean-Michel Basquiat that um, I felt inspired by. So that's what this is all about right here. Welcome.
You're at 109 right now.
I hope that's not too loud. That was a little louder than I expected.
You're at 109 right now.
There we go. And I wonder how these levels are. This microphone, let me turn this one up here, perhaps. All right. So I have several books that I've purchased over the years. And let me give you some background into who I am. Um, and my Basquiat discovery journey in the year 2005. 20 years ago, I came into the knowledge of Jean-Michel Basquiat. My name is Larry Wiggs. I'm a native Angelino, and this is the IC 109 or IC 109 podcast.
You're at 109 right now.
109. That was the voice of Kobe Bryant, the legendary late Kobe Bryant. Um, so I am very much inspired by the spirit, flashes of the spirit, a la Robert Ferris Thompson, who inspired Jean-Michel Basquiat. Robert Ferris Thompson was a Yale professor who wrote about in his words, I believe, I'm borrowing a phrase, the omnipresence of African influence. He wrote about that, and so music was very much a part of uh, his expression. Music also inspired Basquiat, so there's very much deep resonance between the work and life of Robert Ferris Thompson and Jean-Michel Basquiat. They knew each other, um, so there's literal connections, crossovers, crossings, life paths, cross connections. Okay, intersections. All right. Um. So in 2005, I went to my first Basquiat exhibit in Los Angeles, where I was confronted. Even before I arrived at the exhibit, I was confronted with the fact that I did not know um, who he was. I did not know how to pronounce his name. And only as of late, within the last 1 or 2 years, have I pronounced his name correctly. I'm hesitant to say correctly because I want to call the spirit of the brother. What I know him as, I've seen him on Facebook as some Michaud. Some Michaud. You know, we out here. He's the linguist brother, the linguistics professor at Harvard University. In fact, um, he might say no, that's correct. Whether you say Basquiat or Basquiat or Basquiat, or there are levels um, to the pronunciation. Just because you do it, you say it different. Tomato is what I'm saying. Just because you say it differently doesn't mean that you're necessarily wrong. Okay, but yeah. So I've 20 years ago, I was probably saying Basquiat, right? These days I've switched it up as Basquiat. Okay, but I didn't know the brother. Didn't know his story. Didn't hadn't heard anything about the brother. Didn't know what he looked like. Didn't know what he was all about. But in Los Angeles, pictures, no, not pictures, but advertisements for this show, they dotted the city. And I saw the name, and I was into art because I was a humanities student in high school. And I was like, I dig art. I'm up to look at some new art to expand my horizons. And there I was confronted with this name that I hadn't seen before, and I had to do some research into it. And then I was surprised. I was utterly surprised to discover it was a black man, a black artist. And then it was like, well, dang, I wish I knew who this black artist was. Um, and and I was, you know what it was? I felt as if I needed to be there. I needed to be at the art exhibit because this was a black artist, and I was like, I've got to support this brother. Because oftentimes when I would go into art museums, I would see white artists, the work of white people, and I was like, but this is a black artist, and then I need to support it, especially because it was on a larger scale. Like the California African American Museum, no shade, is a smaller venue, I believe. It's a smaller space. But then Mocha was in downtown Los Angeles, a larger space, and if nothing else, a larger audience would show up. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's tricky, maybe I'm prejudiced in that sense, or maybe my statement is all sorts of awkward. But I mean, Mocha, Museum of Contemporary Art, you know, I don't know, but so it was an event. It was an event to attend 20 years ago. When I showed up and I learned about Basquiat and I did my little research around the show, I was struck by the work, saying to myself, "This is brilliant. This is amazing. This is a black artist. I dig it. I understand his art. I can see he's praising black people. I see the presence of black people, blackness in his art. This is dope. I love it." And then I was floored with the realization that the brother was deceased, and I'm like, how come our heroes? How come my heroes are dead? I could think of, like Huey P. Newton, dead. Like Tupac Shakur, dead. Um, it was just like, come on, man, can't we live? Like, come on, can't we live, bruh? And yeah, the genius, the dead genius. It was just an awful thing. Anywho, so there I was, in Los Angeles, meeting Jean-Michel's artwork for the very first time, 20 years ago. All right. Now the thing about it though is his artwork had such a great impact on me that I said, you know what, I I'm gonna have to do some more research into this brother. So one of the things that I did initially after the um, after that, what is that thing called? The exhibit. After the exhibit is, I need to go to the library, and I need to find information about this artist. Now, at the exhibit, there was they played an excerpt from Downtown '81, and my conclusion after watching that maybe 10-minute excerpt, it might have been less than 10 minutes. But after watching that excerpt, I was like, yo, I need to watch the whole thing. So I went to the library to get a copy of Downtown '81. And from there, it went from Downtown '81 to watching The Radiant Child to, I'm trying to ingratiate myself. I'm trying to be very much engrossed in the discovery of this man's life. I'm trying to learn as much as possible, trying not to be ignorant. So those were my humble beginnings with the legacy of Basquiat. Cut to 20 years later, and I have a library of several books that I picked up from the different exhibits that I've traveled to and attended, as well as some books that I picked up throughout my travels. Um, for instance, through my travels in Korea, South Korea, when I lived and worked there, I went to an art museum because that's what I do. I go to art museums. I'm not like a club, going out to party type of dude. I'm more so, let me go to an art museum and chill and see and learn some things, you know. So museums have been a great part of my life for many years. So at the museum, I bought one of the catalogs from an exhibit, an Andy Warhol slash Jean-Michel Basquiat exhibit that was held in South Korea. Now, I didn't attend that particular exhibit. It was before I arrived. Uh, it had come and gone before I arrived in South Korea, but I had the catalog, which was a dope connection. So I had that. I picked up a number of catalogs from the art exhibits that I attended. Now, I'm not a big art exhibit collector, art exhibit catalog collector. In fact, 20 years ago when I attended that my very first Basquiat show, I didn't have enough money to attend the show as well as buy an art catalog. And I wasn't about, to sit there and read the art catalog from, cover to cover. I really wanted to just experience the art, to be out of the home, to be somewhere where, lots of people were, to just vibe. And that's exactly what I did. Um, but later on, I did, within the last, let's say, 2 years, I did go out and buy the catalogs for the books, for the exhibits that I attended. Um, so I'm sitting in front of a couple of books now. One book that I purchased in 2023 at the King Pleasure exhibit, which was put on by the Basquiat family, Basquiat's sisters, Janine and Lisan, as well as the whole family, Sophia Harivo, Janine's daughter. Um, yeah, the family, as well as other family members. Anywho, I bought this book at King Pleasure. It's a small. This is the Taschen. The Taschen. This is the small version of the Taschen collection of Jean Michel's works. All right, I've got that book sitting in front of me, and then I've got the catalog or the exhibit. Is it a catalog? Maybe it is a catalog. I guess it's the book that they produced for the Boom for Real exhibit. And the Boom for Real exhibit is the one that I attended when I happened upon it. I serendipitously happened upon it when I was in Frankfurt, Germany in 2018. I was in Germany to visit my family. I have German cousins, and I was actually 10 years late. 10 years late, I told my German cousins that I would visit them 10 years prior to my initial visit. And 10 years later, I was able to finally meet them. So I flew to Frankfurt, Germany, and I had like a 6 to 9 hour layover or something ridiculous in Frankfurt. And then thereafter, I was going to fly to Berlin, where my cousins live. So during the layover, I left the airport and I went into the city. And as I was walking around aimlessly, completely aimlessly, it was my first time in Frankfurt, um, so I had no idea what the heck I was doing, just looking around. um, I saw the name Basquiat in big, bold letters. This is 2018, so this was 13 years after my initial visit to the Basquiat exhibit. And there, in these big, bold letters, I see Basquiat, and it's like it's a beacon. It's a what is it? It's calling me. It's like, oh, Basquiat's here. Come closer to Basquiat. And I'm like, oh, please tell me there's a Basquiat exhibit. Please tell me the doors to the exhibit are open, that I haven't missed it, that the exhibit hasn't ended, that the exhibit run hasn't closed, hasn't ended. So there I am walking toward the doors of the museum. Sure enough, the doors are open. I read the date. Sure enough, I have made it within the start date and the end date, within the run of the exhibit. So I'm right on time. It's perfect timing. So I'm like really stoked, really excited to see a Basquiat exhibit in Berlin, excuse me, in Frankfurt, Germany. And it was really important because there I was just aimlessly walking around the city, and I happened upon it, and I felt then at that moment that I was meant to be there. Prior to seeing Basquiat's sign, I felt like alienated. I felt like I felt lost. I felt very much like I shouldn't be there. Yeah, my cousins live in Germany, but they were in a different city, and I'm just walking around like a weirdo all by himself, just socially awkward. Just like what, like how do I fit into the city? I just felt like I didn't until Basquiat's name was there, and I thought to myself, oh, I'm comfortable being anywhere. I exist everywhere. Confidence came up. It was like Basquiat has made me feel comfortable. There was a confidence in a, I want to say, Africaneity. See, when you're in Europe, you can feel like you're outside because you're not European. You see all these Caucasian, European people, and you're the African, the black, and you stand out and you stand apart. But when I saw the Basquiat name, I felt very much at home, comfortable in my own skin, and I was like, yeah. And my swag was turned up. I had a bop in my step, or it was like, yeah, I got this. Don't fret, we got this. So I go in and I go and enjoy myself. Something that I noticed that was different about the exhibit in Berlin versus the exhibit in Los Angeles is that in Germany, did I say Berlin again? I meant Frankfurt. In Germany, the exhibit in Germany, well, they showed the the movie Downtown 81 in its entirety. They just played it. You could walk into a little theater area and just watch the whole thing. Whereas in Los Angeles, they only gave you like a 10-minute snippet that they were replaying, you know? And so for me, in 2005, when I went to that exhibit, I had to search for Downtown 81 outside of the museum. I had to search in order to watch it in its entirety. But when I was in Germany, it was like, hey, you could sit here and watch the whole doggone thing if you like, if you want, which I loved. It was like, oh wow, I get a movie, I get to see the artwork. I could spend my whole day. I could spend the whole layover that I had, the 6 or 9 hour layover. I could spend all of that time right there at the museum, and that was just perfect. Um, I don't think I spent that much time there. I checked out a lot of the artwork. Many of the works I had seen before, many I had not seen. But anyway, it was a beautiful experience. So that was my experience at the in Frankfurt, Germany, in Frankfurt, Germany. I just keep want to say Berlin. I was in Germany. I've got my books. I got all of that. I'm 20 minutes into this podcast, but I really wanted to focus on one particular work of art by Jean-Michel Basquiat. So I guess I'm going to start that now, 20 minutes into this podcast. So I'm probably not going to even have, I'm not even going to give it much, do it justice. I've probably just given you some introductions into my experience of Basquiat and learning. I should just leave it at that. And then I'll come back with another episode of the podcast where I'll dive right into it where I'm talking about the artwork, my favorite work of art in particular. But that's in a nutshell. That's how I learned about Basquiat, and I guess I could still say some a few more things. Like I moved to South Korea in 2007, and in my apartment, I adorned the walls with a T-shirt that I had purchased from a store. What was the name of that store? I don't think it was Uniqlo. Um, was it Uniqlo? I don't know. I don't remember the name of the store, but the store was selling a T-shirt, an all black T-shirt in white letters, written on the T-shirt. It said Jean-Michel Basquiat. So I bought that. I had that on my wall in South Korea. The year was 2007. So my influence, appreciation, and admiration for all things Jean Michel Basquiat was apparent by the simple fact that I put a T-shirt with his name on my wall, kind of like artwork. Yeah. Um, I thought it was easy. Excuse me. I thought it was interesting that I could find Jean-Michel Basquiat's name on clothing in Korea. In Korea, South Korea of all places. I bought that T-shirt as well as Uniqlo. Uniqlo has a partnership with the estate of Basquiat. So if you go into Uniqlo, you can find T-shirts with Andy Warhol, Jean-Michel Basquiat, as well as a number of other iconic brands, artists, figures, movies, whatever. You can find that. Basquiat is absolutely one of them. But there was this other store, and I bought a T-shirt. It was a blue T-shirt with yellow letters, yellow lettering, kind of like block lettering, and the letters spelled BSQT. And I was so happy to purchase that because I was like, that is Basquiat, but I imagine the average South Korean had no idea that BSQT meant Basquiat. And I think the average South Korean would have purchased that T-shirt only because of maybe the color scheme, or you know, or just because of the way that it looked, and they might have thought, oh, that's cool, without having a deeper knowledge of what they were putting on themselves, right? But for me, it was like, oh, I'm summoning Basquiat through these purchases. I have my blue and yellow BSQT shirt that I know is Basquiat, Jean-Michel, the artist from New York, Puerto Rican, Haitian, my knowledge of Basquiat was growing, but I knew some things about Basquiat, right? That I thought were prerequisite for putting on these things. My high school teacher, Alan Kaplan, told us, be very careful, be wary of what you put on your body. Know very well what it is before you put it on your body. For instance, I think he mentioned gave the example of a Indian bolo tie. He said, you know, there are cultural implications. There's significance to cultural groups. You don't want to appropriate, just take from that culture and put it on. Like, you know, it's like, what are you doing? Do you know who you are? Do you know who you know what articles of clothing you're wearing? You know, do you know what those what what spirits you're summoning? You know, kind of a thing. Uh, they had shoes with Basquiat's artwork on them. Yeah, I was surprised that you could find a lot of Basquiat inspired clothing in South Korea, and not only from Uniqlo, but just there were a couple other brands, or at least one other brand that in particular where I found Basquiat inspired stuff, and I was like, I need to wear this stuff. If I couldn't afford it, I wouldn't. I didn't buy it. But if I could afford it, like the T-shirts, yeah, I bought them. I've been to the King Pleasure exhibit that ended 2 years ago. Jean-Michel Basquiat, King Pleasure, and then before that, well, wait a minute, King Pleasure, because I got to talk about that. King Pleasure opened in New York, and I flew from Los Angeles to New York just to attend that exhibit, and then King Pleasure came to Los Angeles, which I was delighted for, and I attended the Los Angeles exhibit as well. But I flew to New York because I wasn't about to miss, you know, a very special exhibit. But again, I flew to New York to visit, to attend the exhibit because I didn't think that it was gonna come to. I thought it was just gonna have one run, you know. But no, they moved it from New York to L.A., which I was delighted for. And I was able to meet the sisters, Lisan and Janine. They signed my King Pleasure catalog, and it was all good. Before that, Germany, 2018. Before that, um, what, LA, New York, Germany, and then South Korea. In South Korea, there was an Andy Warhol exhibit in Seoul, and I attended that. So I'm sure they either mentioned Basquiat or they had an artwork, a work of art that was the result of the collaboration between Andy Warhol and Jean-Michel Basquiat. And I had to attend it because I'm like, man, I need to know. I need to know more about the art scene, Basquiat, Warhol. I just need to be present. And then, of course, the movie Basquiat, starring Jeffrey Wright. I watched that again to get some information. I watched it after many years after it had been produced. You know, once I learned there was a movie, it was like, okay, that's something else I've got to learn. Um, I've got to, I've got to, I've got to have that experience. I got to watch that. I did all that kind of stuff, and so since 2005, it's been 20 years, and here I am today, and I'm like, yo, I'm a Basquiat connoisseur. Um, but no, maybe not. But I have discovered something in his work of art that is wholly in line with who he is and what he is. And it's a remarkable thing. Um, it's perfect timing. Now is the time to talk about it, to share it, and just gonna have to get into it. So, in the next installment of this podcast, we're gonna get into a discussion of All Color Cast, a painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat. That is my favorite. I'll explain why, and we'll delve into the details of the work of art. I'm Larry Wiggs. This is the IC 109 podcast. This has been an exploration of my journey to discover Jean-Michel Basquiat's artwork.
You're at 109 right now.